Welcome, my friends. Welcome to the second episode of the Forgotten Podcast series. My name is D Rock, and we will begin our series with a deep exploration of just what this is all about. Back in 2012, around August time, I set about to create a story. And at the time, I didn't really realize just what this story would become. I had no clue. I was fumbling in the dark. But it suffice to say is, as the years went on, more and more did I dive into this story here. And along the way, I would keep notes. I had these journals. Throughout the years of my life, I would explore these journals. I would try to find myself in them. I didn't necessarily know that at the time, but looking back, it's kind of what I was doing, you know? And since I was setting about to find myself, I learned a hell of a lot along the way. When I began this adventure, there was so much that I was missing, so much that I was lacking in my life at that time. I thought I knew so much, but only then do I realize now how little I truly still know. No matter how many things along the way I would learn, here I am sitting, still not knowing who the fuck I am. But when it comes to the creation of the mythology, at the time I didn't see it as I'm writing a mythology. At the time I saw it as like, this is just a book. And about a year into the project, I was like, okay, maybe this is a chronology. Maybe this is a series of books. And then as time went on more, I was like, many years later, I'm like, okay, there's something more to this. This is not just some simple, like, it's a fun fantasy book that I'm writing. And I have friends help me along the way. Like, I know that there's more to it now. A hell of a lot more. So these days, I'm trying to replace the word book with mythology. Just to kind of really take and scope all of it. Because when it comes to the grand vision of this all, we're talking about a fucking story that begins like the Greek mythologies with the Titans and the Olympiads. Obviously, my Olympiads are called Aeon, and they are a totally different thing entirely. And it goes all the way to like the 1640s, where the character named Eris begins his journey to unravel all that was forgotten along the way. That's the major story, and we're talking hundreds, going into thousands and multiple thousands, then a few thousand years. I'm like, this is more than I'm just writing a book. Pure and simple, this is a mythology. It was a very, very long and arduous process, and over the years, it took me just about all of my sanity to pull this through. I mean, it's astounding just how this all happened. And I can't really tell you in simple words what that even fucking means, because truly, to understand this is to know that when I set about to make this mythology, with its humble beginnings, it was just a single story about something. It took me quite a while to really hone in on what the hell that even meant. You know, like, we have, after the idea of the creation of the world, after I started kind of like getting a sense of the place, I knew I needed to have a hero in this place. There was no other way about it. So for the longest time, I called him Hero. I just didn't know what his name was. A young male, he is born in a small town in the Mountainland territory named Aval. He has never really been anywhere too far from home. Both his parents are merchants that once traveled the lands but now have settled in Aval, loving the small town friendliness. So he grew up hearing stories of adventure. He craved adventures, but fears to go, especially on his own. Hero is in his early 20s and has complex mind, active imagination. With depression issues in his life, he feels unaccomplished in life, yet undeserving in anyone's attention. Yet he is very empathetic and caring for others. Well, geez, didn't I just describe myself in a fucking nutshell? So it really began with, I don't think I was ever cognizant of this. This was not some sort of thing that I was sitting down like, and this is how I'm going to do it, and I shall be a smart boy. I simply, merely by accident, placed myself as the hero. I said, well, it's got to be me. I'll go in this book and I'll live through it. And I have to take my friends with me so we can explore what's in this world and how we can go about shaping it. And once the map started to make sense, and once all the Anaku stuff was being born, which we'll get into in a later episode, and once I really started liking this place and creating lore and making up groups of people and kind of talking a little bit about these keepers, these ancient protectors, these Jedi. Once all that stuff started to really take shape, I knew that I needed to look into story making. I had no fucking clue what that even meant. I was none the wiser to the grand concept that is storytelling. I wasn't really taught that in school. When I took my English classes as a young man growing up in a small town, they teach you the basics, and sometimes, you know, they would, I don't know how to explain it, man. You know, you learn all the punctuations and all that shit. But when it really came down to it, once I started falling behind in school, just for whatever reason it was, I don't know. I don't know why I couldn't keep up with the other kids, but I just couldn't. It was always hard for me to do group things because I fell behind. That's why I can't do group settings when it comes to teaching, because I don't like the pace. Now, in saying that, I was thrown into special ed, and in special ed, man, half of the attention was given to you, and you just kind of fell away from the world a little bit, where you were just another fucking pawn in the system. And there wasn't a whole lot of, I don't know how to word it, man. It's just like, I wouldn't say necessarily you were given up on, but in reflection, that's kind of what I kind of took away from that maybe we were given up on. Because I remember I was in this small town special ed English for most of my elementary and all of my middle school and a little bit of my high school, 9th grade. And then I transferred to another school, and they almost didn't believe how little I knew. You should know what this is by now. You should know what that is. You should know what this is. And they didn't believe me, and they kind of made me feel like shit about it, because they'd say things like, you know, MLA formatting, or they wouldn't believe me if I couldn't tell. I mean, I don't know what do you mean getting sources? And I've never done any of that. And they were just astounded how little I was taught, so I didn't do well. I barely got by, and I relied on the help of everyone else doing it for me. I remember, like, looking back at some of my high school years in English, and basically, like, the teacher would just pull me in after class and just kind of do the work but walk me through it. I think they just wanted to get me going. And I just sat there just amazed at, like, what the fuck is all this? You know, you're taking the papers, you're kind of writing it down, you're just telling me what you're doing, and, like, I didn't know how to feel about all that. So for me, English and that whole idea of writing was so foreign, and so I just was so confused about it. I didn't know what to do. I didn't think that I had a fucking purpose in this, and I was just kind of following along with it all. It wasn't really easy for me to once I started in my 20s to set about making this, how fucking far behind I felt. How little I, and still do to this day, understand about proper grammar. I still don't know how to use a fucking semicolon. You know what I mean? I don't understand the logic behind that. And apparently I don't use commas enough, but I don't like fucking commas, you know? And so it's like, with all that being said, as I was setting out on this journey to write this mythology, I kind of realized I had a lot to catch up on. And so I enrolled myself into community college because my grades in school, like my GPA was like an average of like 1.3. You know, I'd barely fucking skated by. And because of that, I had to take a general arts degree. I had to try to take that. But they fucking put me in a math class, and if I'm bad at English, I'm even worse at math. I can't do it. I can't do multiplication. I don't remember how to do any of that. I have a hard time doing subtraction in my head. I don't do math. I can't. It doesn't work for me. That's just not my being. I'm not a math guy. I think of life differently. It's more of a feel thing for me. Now, in saying that, I couldn't even do a semester of that math class. I couldn't keep up because they were starting off at basic algebra, and I told them that I can't do this. This is too hard. And so I just had to drop out and say, fuck it, I guess I can't get a degree because I have to have a math fucking thing. And I can't do that. I just can't. It's not my mind. I knew that. And I just wish people would fucking listen and stop playing these damn games. But it is what it is, I suppose. But in my English class, I had to start out with formal writing. I got a fucking 4.0 in that shit. Because I gave a fuck. I wanted to become a writer. I wanted to set out on this goddamn journey and start telling a story. I had to kind of tone down my creative writing skills and work on my formal, which I've forgotten all of it by this point because I don't like formal writing. And in some sense, it slowly started teaching me something. So as a youth, I had a very low reading, whatever the fuck they call that, reading level. I was always very, very far behind. If I was in 4th grade, I had a 1st grade reading level. If I was in 6th grade, I had a 3rd grade reading level. Like, I was really bad. And even graduating, I had a very hard time reading basic high school level stuff. I couldn't do it. It was so fucking retarded, man. It was so difficult for me to live life because I just, no matter where I went, I was left behind in my mind. No matter what I did, I didn't know what the fuck was going on. It's just been a goddamn thing throughout the entirety of my life. It's just been this whole, I don't know what's happening right now. Why does everyone else know what's going on? And why am I the only one not clued into this shit? It's generally been my life story. Still to this day. I'm always the last person to know something, and everyone acts the exact same fucking way. They always say, how do you not know that by now? And I just gotta go like, I don't know. Because no one fucking said anything. What do you want me to do? Right? Fucking read someone's mind? I can't do that. It's so fucking irritating, man. It really is. I am so fucking irritated at people when it comes to that. It's really caused me to be more of an isolationist in the way that I live my life, where I'm just like, you know what? We're going to walk away from this whole goddamn thing, and we're going to do our own son of a bitchin' thing. And if people don't like the way I write, they can go fuck themselves. They can teach me if they really give a fuck that much. Or if they don't like what I'm talking about, same logic. Teach me. You know, I've always had this struggle like I wanted a mentor in all of this journey that I've been on. I just want someone to fucking teach me how to do this shit. And it never happened, so I had to become my own mentor. Now, I said all that to say this. I'll take all that and go back to these journals. As I look back through these journals, do I see me discovering my world? Now has a double meaning to it. Discovering my world as in the place in which I exist in this world that you and I inhabit, Earth, you know, in the universe. But also my world as in Uandra, this place that I constructed in my fucking brain and has become this grand mythology that has grown over the ages to the point where it, to me, makes more sense than the real world. And I mean that in the healthiest way possible, because I don't necessarily, I know how to function in the living world. I just do it enough to get by, do the shit I need to do, and leave. But there's a lot of things that throughout the journals where I'm trying to unravel things. And in that unraveling and becoming my own mentor was I realizing that with which I had learned in my head all along the way, I would use this book as a platform in the new understanding that I was trying to achieve. Because at the end of the day, as I've been doing this slowly, I didn't really use my, how would I say it? Nothing's planned. Like right now, this podcast, I have no idea where I'm going to go next. I didn't plan any of this. I just hit record. Okay? So that's how I live my life. There's not a whole lot of planning. There's a lot of studying. There's a lot of trying to understand with empathy, or learn about the world, or learn about history, or grasp to understand the deep psyche of mankind. There's a hell of a lot of that, but generally with that information, I don't have a game plan. I just kind of take it all in and then I go forward. So if that's the way I live my life, these journals were just me understanding my world around me, and through that, trying to find ways to puzzle piece that into the mythology. With things in history, like I remember that there's a little thing right here talking about that old tree that I read about that was been around since the days of Christ, and how it's kind of, it's this old withered looking tree. I don't remember where it's at. And I just thought, wow, wouldn't that be cool if that very tree was a tree of wisdom? Because I was just connecting the idea of Christ in an old tree. I'm like, like some sort of knowledge holding tree. And then these Anaku would use this in a ritual. And maybe out of this tree, there was a voice that would give them instruction, some sort of God. I don't know. And maybe it protects the land. Now that's back in 2012. Flash forward to 2024. I'm like, yeah, that's Mother speaking through the tree, because the Titans made Juandra and they wrap the world around the essence of Mother. And she comes through in what's called the Trees of Life. And these Trees of Life are her portals in which she communes to the Anaku. And this ritualistic thing that I was describing is actually the essence in which the Anaku heed Mother's words. But do you see how it just kind of began with a humble, like, with the old tree and that was around since Christ, now goes to a mythological exploration of what does that mean? And that's been every goddamn thing in this book. So along the way, over the years, I would compile things like that. Wouldn't it be cool if this happened? Or what about that? Or what about this? What about that? Oh, there's a temple. Okay, this temple is located in the mountains. And on the temple, there's these two figures carved in stone that are wrestling each other. Their arms are locked, but it's some sort of an even match. And that exists. Anyway, let's go over here now. And I was like, oh, there's a Sifo light. It's some sort of weird torch that the hero finds in an ancient ruin. And when he uses it, it kind of, I don't know, maybe it allows him to see things that he couldn't. Like it opens a realm up to him, this light. Anyway, and I just kept doing that shit. I just would throw things out there. Or I would explore my thoughts and I would say, like, here's how I feel about life today. Or I would take notes about something I like in mythology. Or I would try to draw maps. Or I would try to explore characters. Or that's all the journals were. Once I finished the journals in like 2017, from that point, it was trying to construct everything out of them. So these journals became this foundation. They became this place in which I build the book from. Here's everything you need to know about the book. It's in these journals. Thumb through them, find what you need, and construct your world. And that's what I was saying previously, that these journals, the guided meditation, and the mentorship that I gave myself, and the writing down of the world that I understand it, through that, we can build the mythology. So when I started to hone in, like, what are the Anakume? When I started to think about what are Aeon, what are Titans? When I started to think about who are the other races on this world, and I thought about different factions, and when I eventually said, there's this faction called the Serpentine Order that don't like mankind, and there's the Aevan Society, which is the highest group of mages in mankind. What does that mean? And I would battle myself in my understanding of what is good and what is bad. Always. If I made a faction the Anakume Serpentine Order, which hate mankind because mankind's stealing their life essence from them. And they're a group of people that are a group of Anakus that banded together to try to solve the problem of their fading from the world because their magic was cut off. They are now fading from the world. How the hell would they react to mankind? And this group slowly became a vampiric group where they would suck the life essence from mankind, these mages, and use it to prolong their lives. And not only that, but they do experiments on mankind to find ways to stop the Anaku threat. The threat to the Anaku, which is their disappearance from the world. I wrote it like that, and I thought, well, how can I make them good guys, though? And that began with the creation of Yuandra. The world was built for them and no one else. Mankind came and stole it. How could they ever be wrong? And that was kind of the point. You just keep building and building and building, and you start asking yourself questions, and you start saying, like, well, how does this in response to that? If mankind comes across as this evil group of people, how can I make them the good guys? What about different schools of thought of mankind? What about those that don't like what Adrana's doing, but they're also mankind? They just live in another country. How does that all work in tandem with each other? But at the end of the day, it was all built around the idea of these journals being the self-exploration. So in many, many senses, the self-exploration through the journals is me knowing myself. And that's been the major key of it all. If I can know who I am, if I can understand the view, or I should say, I can understand the lens in which I looked at this world, how do I understand what sees? You're living your life. You're acting in this world. You have things that you like. You have things that you hate. You have friends. You have lovers. You have parents. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're a human being. You're living in this world. How do you know what it is that those eyes, that mind, that soul, that consciousness, how do you know what that is? Instead of just living day to day and not ever fucking thinking any deeper than what you're about to do or what you want, what if you start thinking about what it is that that thing that does think is? Who is the person that looks at you in that mirror? Who is that person? What do you see beyond the physical? Because that's the hardest part. With this exploration of self, it's like you have to get away from the physical. The physical means your physical attributes, the things that you visually see. I see my eyes, I see my face, and get away from, like, I see an ugly chin, or I see this, I see a fat body, whatever it is that you don't like about yourself. It's not that. It's when you look at that person in the mirror and you look deep in their eyes, which are your own. Who is that? Why are they there right now? What are they doing? That's you. Who is that? Something that, for me, was born out of coming out of my parents' home as a child and a teenager, and going into the world and realizing, what's the foundation of that? You walk out and you experience this life. And I've said before, my first experiences as I stepped out, was with my friends and the music. And then I met this girl, and she turned out to be an alcoholic. And sadly, she passed away from, my first girlfriend passed away from her alcoholism. She had, what is that? Kidney or liver failure. I don't remember which one. She needed a transplant, but they couldn't give it to her in time. But she killed herself because of the alcoholism. Now, that was my first experience of life, of being a man. And I dealt with an alcoholic, and I didn't have a lot of money. I worked at McDonald's. I was miserable there, and they treated you like a slave, and you only got paid like fucking, what was I making, between like $6 to $8 an hour, getting paid bi-weekly. It's horrible. Horrible, man. coming from all that and realizing this is not okay for me. This is not okay. I don't want to fucking live like this. I don't want to toil my life away in a fucking job. I don't want to be miserable with some woman. You know, it really caused me to look inward, and these journals became my safe haven. They became something that allowed me to, like, what am I? What am I meant to do? There's no way that I was born in this world and I was meant to just be some fucking poor white kid who doesn't mean anything, who was given a shitty fucking education and never given a chance. There's no way that's all I was meant to be. I can't allow that to be a thing. I don't want to be a victim. I can't be a victim. But at the end of the day, yeah, you can think that, but like, how do you get out of it? And that's when I said, like, who are you? If you don't want these things, why do you have them? So I'd look at myself in the mirror and I'd say, who's that guy? It was always hard for me to look at myself. I always averted eyes, you know, even my own. And I didn't know how to, like, figure this out. But along the way, I would meet these guys that would help me, and these very same guys that are helping me in the book now. I mean, they helped me in my life to try to establish what kind of person I am. Who am I? Teach me to figure this out, because I don't know how to. And it set me on this long and arduous path of trying to find that answer. And it's been over 12 years since that, and I'm still like, I think I may know who I am, but I mostly know less than I did before. And it's like, I don't know how to feel about that sometimes, and other times I just accept it. Can you truly know yourself? Which, that right there is the basis of the stories. Can you truly know yourself? When Eris is setting out on his journey, and when he's tasked to become this prophet of Oapake, the prophet of the Forgotten King, and he's meant to save the world, and he doesn't know what that means. He's like, what does that mean to save the world? Prophet of what? And when he slowly has to uncover the realization of the God within him. Okay, God's within me? How? And what part of me is he within? Am I acting through him, or is he acting through me? My doubt, my struggle, my darkness, is he there too? Am I a conduit of his will, or am I the eyes in which he looks through? Now that's something Eris is going to struggle with for a long time. If I'm supposed to save Oapake from damnation, I'm supposed to save my own God from destruction, from banishment, from disappearing entirely. I, as a mortal man, have to stop that from happening? What does that even mean? A lot of that revelation of saving the king from the forgotten, or no, saving Oapake, which his name was the Forgotten King, from the realm of creation which he is trapped, that was born from someone giving me an idea. Because in the early days of this book, I would say, there's an evil forgotten king who's trying to destroy this world. And that's what that is. And then I met this guy that says, what if he's not evil? What if he is betrayed? What if he's trying to make atonement? What if he's trapped? What if he's not an evil guy, but he's stuck in an evil role? And that set about a new understanding for me. This was way back in maybe 2013 or 14, something around there. And it dawned on me. I'm like, yeah, he could indeed be not an evil guy, but given an evil role. And maybe he does feel bad. And then the guy said, and then he's stuck in the realm of creation going mad. And I said, that sounds fucking dope. It's only through the years that self-prophecy kind of began, where now I'm basically the forgotten king, stuck in this mythology, the realm of my creation, trying to get the fuck out, relying on Eris to save me as the writer to my creation. And it mirrors Oapake. Like, it's just so crazy how that happened. It was a guy's idea, and all of a sudden I'm living that. I'm stuck in this mythology. I'm just trying to figure out who the fuck I am. I'm forgotten. Who am I? I'm relying on a made-up character named Eris to help me realize who I am. So that very idea, that very idea of this being my platform and my foundation to understand self, has, in a sense, trapped me here. To which now I'm relying on that with which was born through the understanding to be the thing to save me once again. It's in that very same essence of going into the realm of the creation, so going into the imaginary, and trying to pull from it that thing that needs to be manifested. So Eris in the book is a representation of me trying to understand the world around me, but he's also the conduit in which helps me realize who I am in the first place. So when Eris needs to save his own creator, he has to save me, because Eris is that inner child within myself that needs to save the adult that's going through life and is fucking miserable. It's like this cycle. And this mythology becomes, in some sense, this playground to this. One that grows more real every day, for good or for bad. I'm talking about the Titans creating Yuandra in the Forgotten series, and it's like that's happened in the book to get you to the point where we're going to tell a story of Eris. Hundreds of thousands of years, or we have to go through real quick to get to that. What is all this? And it's become, in some ways it's trapping, but in other ways it's liberating, because I'm through the mythology of understanding self is the mythology of understanding the other, is understanding the things around you. And that which is around you is what becomes you. You are what you do, and you are what happens to you. Now keep in mind, this is all born from the idea of who am I? And that's what I really wanted to get across. Like, that is not some easy question that you can just fucking handle. Like, yeah, to say who are you is to do this. It is so vastly complex and so many moving parts, and it's so convoluted in whatever you're trying to achieve. Whatever it is that you're seeking to do in understanding self, you have to unravel so much around you. And you have to, with all of your might, try to take everything that which you're learning and somehow put it in compartments in your being. And in some sense, that's understanding without. That's understanding people around you and how you fit into this world. If you don't know how you fit in the world, you don't know who you are, because you have to know yourself before you fit into it. It's like that expression where they say, you can't help someone else until you help yourself first. Does that make sense? If I were to try to give someone advice, I got to know it for myself first. At the end of the day, that's where true empathy is born, but not everyone has that ability to understand themselves, and in some ways to help someone else. It's a journey that it's only yours to take, and that's when I always think back about the idea of the creator. If I need Eris to save me, does that reflect something above me? I can get metaphysical with it, I know, and I can get very elusive. But when I reflect on my creator, my personal creator, I just think, is this what I'm meant to do? Am I truly self? Or is what I do in my book a reflection of that which happens above me? I don't know. I really wish I had the answer to that, to say who I am and what I'm doing. You can't help but think that way. If you believe that you were created, you can't help but think that maybe your God needs you. Does he need me? Is what I do a reflection of him? If he's within me and this is happening inside of me, does that not mean it's happening inside of him? Is he trapped too? Do I have to save him? These are things I would ponder over the years. But what I really want to hammer home is this was all born out of me sitting down thinking, I want to write a book. And all these questions started bombarding me, and I've always been kind of a fucking idiot. I've always been a fool. I've always been someone that just doesn't understand, you know. I've been told I lack common sense. That I'm not very intelligent. I had a very low GPA. I took an IQ test. I had a low IQ. I never passed back in the day they called them MEP tests. I did not pass that SAT. I just failed everything that before me and around me. I failed myself. I failed the people that I cared about. I've just always accepted the fact that I'm a total and utter failure. That there's so much in this world that I have dropped. And it took me a long time to get out of that mindset, to realize I failed someone else. But did I ever fail myself? Because at the end of the day, though I might not have passed that fucking test, or though my IQ might be low, or I can't do basic math, and I have a very hard time wanting to live in this world and contribute to this fucking society. What have I done for myself, though? And this book is the first time that I've ever realized, like, this is for fucking me. I'm doing something for myself. And because I'm doing that, I'm meeting new people that aren't asking me to do something for fucking them. I don't feel used through this. And you can kind of see how, when I was saying this book can be liberating, that's the liberating feeling of it. Maybe I'm not a fucking failure. Maybe I can do something. What that is, it's not exactly clear to me. Like, what exactly is all this? But at the end of the day, I'm trying to get closer to my creator. I'm trying to get closer to myself. And if this book becomes my platform in which I enact this, in which I encompass that which I'm trying to do, well, then I feel like that's not a bad endeavor. It's just hard sometimes, you know, because you keep trying to have, it's like trying to look at yourself in the mirror every day and every day trying to find out something more. Some days it's really hard. Other days it's super easy. But I feel like I'm doing it crippled because my mind does not work the way most people's do. Where I'm so stream of consciousness. I have a really hard time. I have a hard time reading. I fucking struggle with reading so much. I'll just look at words and I'll realize an hour goes by and I literally didn't read. I was looking at words the whole time and at the end thinking about something else. I was like, damn it, I want to fucking do this. Or I struggle with wanting to continue in this life and keep making money so I can save up to own my own home. And I just like fucking struggle with doing this shit. Or dealing with people or dealing with commitments. I just struggle so much of trying to fit in this fucking world. And a big part of me doesn't really want to. I always found myself stuck between two worlds. Mine and the one outside of me. My understanding and someone else's. A lot of the times that makes me kind of this ternary thing, I guess we could say. Where I was always this mediator between realms. And only through that did I realize the realms within that we exist are also the realms of another person's understanding. Each human being lives in their own realm. And whatever they're attaching to, whatever speaks to them, whatever flows through them could be from another. That's how people get manipulated. That sense is where I created the whisper, and I said, that's fear embodying some sort of feeling within you. Through that is what you grow or fall. And so a lot of people are being tricked by society, by consumerism, by materialism, by the evils of this world where people are trying to control each other, and they fall inside of it. I never really allowed that to happen to me because I saw through it. And the reason I saw through it was I was able to realize through people, I always want to be the one that is the barrier. I always want to be the one that is their crossroads to another. It was something that was thrust upon me in my youth, where I was caught in the middle of people arguing. I was always the middle one. You know, family and my wife. Between friends, a friend and somebody else, and a wife, let's say. I was always caught in the middle. They don't like this person, that person doesn't like them, and I was the one that saw how to fix the problem, but no one ever fucking listened to me. That's why I'd say, like, dude, I have the answer. If you'd fucking listen to me, your misery would go away. But the greed and selfishness of people is hard to overtake. It's something that I learned about myself. It was something I acted out of necessity. My parents were arguing. I was always stuck in the middle of that. And it's never been different ever since. It's just grown between everybody. And I see that's some sort of role that I have in trying to understand self, in trying to understand the God within me, in trying to see in which I need to live. I learned that I've always been this conduit. I've always been this middle one. I always talked about the middle way. I always wanted to try and grasp what it was to fix problems between people. Because if there's one thing that I know well, that's emotions. I can see through them so easily. I can understand people without even them having to speak, merely just by looking at them. I see you. And that's something that I've learned. Something that's really come to me over these years. And working on this book and truly trying to understand myself, it's really helped me understand the way in which I live in this world and how I go about that living. It's not easy. I mean, ask anyone who's a peacemaker. But in some sense, what I've gathered in this world through the creation of this mythology is the understanding of who I am, who the God is within me, how I trust him with full faith, and every time I'm never led astray, ever. Though I may rise, though I may fall, it's all within the divine plan, you could say, in a very simple way. And as I look for Eris to free me from the realm of creation, as I look for this character to be the childlike nature that hides within me, to unravel that with which I forgot, myself, only then can I truly understand the God within me, because he's always acting through me all the time, every day. There's a voice inside me that tells me to communicate to somebody that needs it. I go and do it, and the words that come out of me are not my own. At least they don't feel that way. I don't know how many people I've had to talk to as a therapist, and I say to them, like, hey, I don't feel like I'm telling you this. Something through me is telling me to tell you this, and this is what you are. And it always feels so much better after I say this, and I don't take the credit because I know it wasn't me. It was the creator inside of me. And just like that, Eris in the stories has me being the being inside of him that's communicating and telling him to do things, or pushing him to go to directions, or giving him little clues along the way, keeping him safe, but letting him go through the world so that he learns. I feel like that's what my Creator's done to me. And one of the final things I will say is what I've learned about writing this book as someone who's guiding my creation is to really appreciate what God does for me, what the Creator does for me, and how he's always there for me. But he doesn't shield me. He allows me to go through the traumas. He allows me to fall. But he doesn't allow me to stray from the path. That's something that I learned because of my writing with Eris, when I'd sit down with that typewriter and I would just churn out page after page after page, and I would just wonder, where are we going, Eris? What is going on here? I don't know what to do. I just kept guiding him and guiding him. And I think we get that confused with our Creator. I think we think the Creator has laid the plan out for us. But I think it's more like you have laid your plan out. He will help you get there. Because even he doesn't know what it is that you're meant to do. But when you do it, it's much like the keepers in my mythology. They know their plan. They know why they're put in the world. They're to guide mankind, but they don't know what their destiny is for themselves. They just know what their purpose is. I'm to help this being. But if you ask the keeper, yes, but what is your destiny? He will not be able to answer that. And then it's in that idea that maybe the keeper is an aspect or a fractal nature of God. So that's another lore element where I say, the keepers of faith, these protectors of mankind, are fractal nature of God. They are the highest beings that hold within them the tool that is the essence of the Creator. And even through that, maybe the Creator has a tool himself that he uses to manifest. And maybe that tool is the very thing that you are meant to figure out what that is. I've really enjoyed this journey I've been on for my entire 20s, and now I'm in my 30s. It's been very, very, very enjoyable to me to come to these realizations, and all because I started writing down in a book. I started wanting to make my own world. It's allowed me to realize who I am. You watch the writing series, you watch the Forgotten series, and you listen to this, you'll start realizing that this is all because of this mythology. It's all a response. Sitting down trying to create a place that was once dark and void, had nothing in it. My imagination was blank. That's when the door opened, and all of the things ever could be and ever will be came pouring out. And I tried jotting everything down in my journals, everything. Then eventually that door closed. And trapped inside of my journals are the elements of creation. And when that stopped in around 2017, it's been my journey from that point to take everything that's in those journals and decipher them, decode them, unlock them. The door was once open. I can open it again. And after I open that door, that's when I go into the world and take with me those journals and how I decipher them and start constructing a new home. It's a sense of afterlife, man. Like, that's the whole fucking point of this. We can create our own afterlife, our own heaven, you could say, your realm of promise. This place this nirvana can be obtained, and I seek to create it for myself. Maybe that's why we fail. Maybe that's why we come back to this world, because you haven't created it yet. And if I feel the hand of the Creator telling me to make my own nirvana, which is the mythology, which the mythology exists in the realm of a god, in his mind, in the eye of his mind, and through that I look into this place, and in that doorway I was given everything from the lore to the characters to the people that would help me make it to the pictures. That door closes and I have to find my way back in there again. And once I open that door of that beautiful place that slowly turns sinister, I have to take shape of it and place everything I learned like a puzzle piece again. It's almost like the puzzle pieces were thrown at me and I have to go back in that door and I have to reconstruct this puzzle. And while I do that, I learn a little bit more about myself and my purpose and who I am. And in that, the story of mankind hides within me. That is like awe-inspiring. That's what keeps me doing this. That's what keeps me from straying from this book. I can never walk away from it because I know I'm unraveling something for myself. And in that, I'm unraveling something for mankind. We all can do it. The more we discover about ourselves, the more we discover about our race, if that makes sense. It's not a few people, it's all. And so if I can do my part, maybe I can take that and be something greater. So when I leave this place, I never have to come back again, and I can transcend to the next realm. I mean, at least that's the hope. But we'll see. Time is irrelevant. Then every day I work on this, every day becomes a little bit more clear to me. I don't know if I'll ever finish it, but I will always, always work on it.